Hello everyone, my name is Claudius Kazan. In this video, we take a look at tonality and the concept of key. We're going to string out all the pitches in the key and we're going to give them names, okay? And we'll see how these names relate to each other, which one is more important than the other, all right? We're talking about function at this point, okay? And we're also talking about the major scale model. Okay, we'll look at what exactly constitutes a major scale so we can transpose it on all pitches eventually. I'm going to perform you the number 19 from Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book and Solfege number 14. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's talk about this concept of tonality or key. What is it exactly? A tonality is a collection of pitches and their functions, right? We're talking about function in here. That all these pitches gravitating around a tonal center, okay? Let's associate this entire concept with the concept of the solar system. Okay, everybody knows about our solar system. What do you really need in order to have a solar system? Well, number one, we need the sun, right? We need a star around which all these planets need to gravitate, okay? Something with enough gravity or pull to keep all these planets going around, all right? And not wandering into space. So it's very important to have a sun or a tonal center if we go back to our theoretic concept here. So tonality, it's a collection of pitches or planets in our case here that all gravitate around a tonal center. We're going to call that tonal center the tonic, okay? In this chart here, I listed all the pitches in the major scale, which we're going to talk about major scales really soon. And we're going to give names to all of these pitches. Just the way we have names for all the planets in our solar system, let's give names to these pitches in here so that we understand later what their function is. Okay? First of all, we have the tonic on scale degree 1. Notice on the bottom I put all the scale degrees. Don't worry about the fact that some of them are uppercase lower numeral and some of them are lowercase numeral. We'll deal with that when we come to building chords on all these pitches. But for now, just know that we notate them with Roman numerals from 1 to 7. Okay? And on the top row, you have their names. First, you have the tonic, the most important pitch in the key. That's your tonal center. Okay, all these pitches are going to go around this tonal center, the tonic. That's why the name tonality comes from the word tonic. Tonic means the most important pitch here. Above that, we have the supertonic. Don't think about the supertonic as being something bigger than the tonic. The word supertonic means just that it's above the tonic. In this case, the word super in there just means that it's above the tonic. And we'll see a little later what function this supertonic has. Next, you have the mediant. Mediant means something of a middle. We'll look at it in a second. Then you have the subdominant. Subdominant meaning that resides under the dominant. You'll see the next pitch is the dominant, the one on the 5th degree. And then you have a submediant. We'll take a look at that too. And finally, you have the leading tone. Very important pitch. We'll talk about that in detail. So first, let's talk about the tonic. Tonic is the most important pitch in that scale. If I go to the piano, right, and I can improvise something only in the key of C. I'm not going to use any black keys, so no accidentals, right? You will see how most of the pitches eventually will want to resolve to my tonal center, which is C, okay? So follow me at the piano, and I will just improvise something only using the white keys on the piano, okay? And you'll see how everything will want to resolve to that pitch C eventually. Now, I'm going to create chords, of course, so there's going to be other notes in there, but notice that there are absolutely no black keys in there. So, all right, see how these pitches here? That's the tonal center in that particular key, right? Everything that I play in C major will need to be resolved eventually to those pitches, C, okay? Now, that C tonal center is not just the one that I put on the schematic here, meaning the middle C. It's every C, okay, that you encounter in any octave, right? So, pitch C in general, we're talking here, as being the tonic in the key of C. Notice that from now on, above each clef in the beginning, I'm going to state what key I'm in, all right? So you saw, again, in the previous schematic, all these pitches in here are subscribing to the key of C, okay? Now let's look at the next important pitch here. This is the dominant, okay? Now, if we associate the tonic with the sun, okay, the most important body here that has a lot of gravity to pull all these planets together, we associate the dominant probably with one of the biggest planets in the solar system. In this case, let's say Jupiter, okay? So your dominant is your Jupiter. Think about that in your head and you'll be fine. You'll find the dominant always a perfect fifth up from the tonic. Okay, that's why the P5 in there, and of course it's on the 5th degree. So we call the 5th degree the dominant, okay? This is the second most important pitch in the key of C. I could go back to the piano and I can improvise a very simple piece by just using two chords. The chord of the 1, the tonic chord, and the dominant chord. It's not going to be a very impressive piece, right? It's going to be something quite basic, but it is possible. A lot of people create music with just these two chords. It's very boring. That's probably because they don't know that there's a few more in there that they could use. But I could go to the piano and just create something very simple just between the chord of the C and the chord of the 5. See how I try to embellish it a little bit, because if you just play two chords, it becomes very, very boring very fast, all right? But there you go. You have to start somewhere, and knowing about the chord of the tonic and the chord of the dominant is very important. Don't worry about the actual pitches in these chords. We'll talk about them when we move to triads and so on, okay? But remember that the tonic and the dominant, very important pillars of the tonality in here. Okay. Next, let's talk about the subdominant. Subdominant means that it resides under the dominant. The word subdominant means under. And this is, of course, built on the 4th degree. You can see why, you know, dominant's on the 5th degree, subdominant, it's on the 4th degree. Now, remember the concept of fifth in here, how we go from the tonic to the dominant fifth? You will find the subdominant also, you know, but this time going down from the tonic 1/5, a perfect fifth. So you can see here, I put the tonic again on the top pitch, and then under the tonic there, you have, or in the middle there, you have the subdominant. And you arrive to it by going down a perfect fifth from your tonic, okay? That's another reason why it's called the subdominant, okay? You have to go under, you have to go down by perfect fifth in order to arrive to your subdominant. Very important stuff, so remember this, okay? You can go by perfect fourth up, you're going to get to the same pitch, all right? But it's more important to go a perfect fifth down. So from C, you go C, B, A, G, F, going backwards to the alphabet, okay? Again, if you want to associate this with one of the planets in the solar system, associated with Saturn, right? Another large planet, very important, but not quite as big as Jupiter, as your dominant, okay? Now, I could go to the piano now and improvise something using these three important pitches, the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. And you'll see immediately how my possibilities start to change a little bit. Oh, I can create more varied chords in here just by introducing another scale degree. For example, I'm starting here. This is the chord of the 1, tonic, 5, dominant, going back to the 1, but now I'm going to go to the 4. 1 again. 5, 1. 4, 5, and back to 1. Okay? So I have a little more variety in here if I also include the chord of the subdominant in my mix. All right? Great. Remember, tonic, subdominant, dominant, the three pillars of tonality in there. Next, I'd like to talk about the leading tone. Now, this is a special pitch in here. It's not so important when you create a chord on it, but the pitch itself in the key of C is that B, okay? Notice that it resides exactly a half step away from the tonic. If you were to associate it with a planet, associate it with Mercury. Mercury is a very small, hot planet, very close to the sun, okay? And it doesn't really draw attention to itself as much. It always advertises the tonic, says, okay, yeah, don't look at me, look at the tonic. Always resolving to the tonic, okay? That's why it's so close, a minor second from the tonic. Now, if you have a scale there that does not have a leading tone, you don't have a major scale. For example, this is your C major scale, which has a leading tone. Okay, that's your leading tone leading to the tonic right there, a half step, right? But what if I start this on another pitch? Oh, that's a whole step there. There's no leading tone there, right? This is a weak key because it doesn't have a leading tone. So the tonic of the scale is strengthened by the presence of the leading tone. So really important when we start talking about major scales is that all these major scales have leading tones, all right? It's important to have a leading tone to strengthen the tonality or the key that you're in, okay? And how do we do that? By having a note 1/2 step lower than the tonic. That's very important. Leading tones, very important function in the key. Next, let's talk about the mediant. Why is it called a mediant? Mediant meaning something of a middle, right? Something of a middle. And this mediant is the pitch E. In the key of C, it's pitch E, because it lies exactly between my tonic and my dominant, the two most important pitches in the tonality or the key, all right? So if you see, this is on the 3rd degree, okay, C, D, E, and that's why it's called a mediant, okay? We'll see, you know, a mediant, if you want to associate it with a planet, you can associate it with either Mars or Earth, you know, smaller planets. They still are, you know, the Earth is important for us because we live on it. But if you have to look at the big scheme of things, it's a smaller planet, not so much a gravitational pull on something. So it's called a mediant. Good. Let's look at also the submediant. Now, the submediant is interesting because in order to understand the submediant, you have to understand again that in order to get to your subdominant, you have to go down by a perfect fifth. Now, in your travel down from the tonic to the subdominant, right in the middle there, you have the submediant. Why? Because you're going to the subdominant, so they wanted to call it a submediant, okay? Submediant, it's on the 6th scale degree, all right? So if your tonic is on 1 or 8, consider it 8. It's the same. And your subdominant is on 4. Right in the middle, on 6, you have the submediant. All right? So that's why it's called a submediant. Again, this is very important too, because it lies exactly between your tonic and your subdominant, but you have to go down a perfect fifth to understand this. All right? So that's your submediant. Again, associated with another planet, maybe Mars or something like that, a medium-sized planet with not an incredible importance, but still, you know, you can see how all these pitches are working together to establish the tonic, the most important pitch in the key. All right, and then we have the supertonic, and this is the only one that's left right now. The supertonic really, you'll see later on why, has a subdominant function, which means that I could, in a lot of cases, substitute the subdominant for the supertonic. A lot of the pitches and the chords are going to be in common. Okay, so if I go to the piano right now, I can show you how instead of using the 4, the chord on the 4, the subdominant, I can use the supertonic instead. Okay, so here it is, just a little example here. So I'm going to name the chords. This is the chord of the 1 or the tonic. Okay, the 5 or the dominant. 1 again. 4. Now supertonic. See, between the subdominant and the supertonic, they sound very much the same. You know, there's one note difference in there. But then I go to the 5 again, and then back to the tonic. Okay? So this supertonic, it's nice if you take it to the dominant. Okay? Just the way you took the subdominant to the tonic, to the dominant, the subdominant to the dominant, and the big scheme of things, and finally to the tonic, you can start actually from the supertonic and take it to the dominant. That's why this supertonic has a subdominant function. Okay, so remember that. Now you know about all these scale degrees and their function: the tonic, the supertonic, the mediant, submediant, dominant. Okay, the submediant and the leading tone. Very important note, the leading tone. And I showed you on the piano how I can create these harmonic progressions between the tonic and the dominant and back to the tonic. That was the one that was kind of boring because you only have 2 chords, all right? And, or I didn't show you this one, but this is going from the tonic to the subdominant and back to the tonic. This is, you'll associate that immediately with something like this. Let's say we have 1, 4, subdominant. Okay, oh, how about if I create something a little more interesting here? We'll come back to it. 4, back to the 1. Ah, that sounds like this. That's called the amen chords, right? In church music, you'll see that a lot. Between the 4th, or the subdominant, to the tonic. That amen, all right? So remember, the 4-1, it's called the amen harmonic progression, okay? Great. And I also showed you how I could put all these 3 together, the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant, and create more interesting music with those 3 chords, a little more varied. All right, great. Now that you guys know about the names of all these scale degrees, let's look at the anatomy of the major scale. This is what we're going to study next. And if I string up all the pitches in the key of C, notice that this time I included the 8th degree, which is also a repeat of the tonic or the 1. Okay, we can call it the 8th degree also. You come up with an arrangement of intervals in here that's very important. That whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. WWH, WWWH. That means whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That refers to half steps. Okay? So if I take any pitch and if I keep this particular arrangement of seconds, right, I end up with a major scale. What's important in here, okay, it's not only that it's made out of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, but also that the third and the sixth, built from the tonic up, are major, okay? The major third and the major sixth. For example, if I go to a piano and I play only, instead of playing, I play, ooh, that's not a major scale anymore, right? Because that third was lowered, okay? That's going to be part of the minor scale. But so it's important to have a major third, right, between the tonic and that mediant, okay? Very important. And also a major sixth between the tonic and the submediant, the one on the 6th degree, all right? And of course, I need a leading tone. Very important. If I don't have a leading tone, I don't have a major scale, all right? Very important. So kind of remember this arrangement here of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and also your major third and your major sixth up from your tonic. They also need to be major as well. Okay, so with that in mind, let's start building this whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and see if I can come up with something similar. So instead of starting on C, let me start on D. Immediately, no, that doesn't work because I don't have whole, whole, half, and here I have whole, half, whole. Doesn't work. How about on pitch E? Not really. Instead of whole, whole, half, I have half, whole, whole. Okay, so I have a minor second at the very, very beginning. How about on pitch F? Not really, right? Because I have 3 whole steps, whole, whole, whole in the beginning. How about the one on G? Okay, so far so good. But I get to here. The only thing I'm missing there is I don't have a leading tone. I have all the other elements up to the leading tone. Maybe I can make a modification and bump that F to an F sharp, and now I have my leading tone. So instead of doing, I'm going to do, oh, that sounds so much better. That is going to have all the elements that I'm after. That whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and also my major third and my major sixth in there, okay? Which means that if I want to stay in this key, the key of G, right, I would need to modify that F sharp all the time. Every time I have an F sharp, I would have to perform as a, every time I have an F, I would have to perform it as an F sharp in order to stay in that key of G. Okay, so when they first invented this system of notation, so they thought, well, you know, instead of writing F sharp every time, okay, in notated music, how about I put that sharp in the beginning of a line into a special place called a key signature. If I put the F in the key signature, that means that it will apply to all the Fs, no matter where they are, okay, on that particular line. So it doesn't matter what octave I'm on. If I put it in the key signature, it will modify it as a constant, okay? So put that F sharp in the key signature, and then it applies to all the Fs on that line, and I don't have to respell it every time, okay? So that's why here on my diagram, you see that backwards curved line. Instead of putting the F sharp where I should have put it, right next to the G there, F sharp to G, I move that F sharp into the key signature, okay? So that's the only modification I needed to make, all right, to create a major scale built on pitch G. Now, if I move to another pitch, A, for example, again, doesn't work because instead of whole, whole, half, I have a whole, half, whole, and the one on starting on B, again, starts with a whole half step again, so it doesn't work. So the only one that worked really nicely, except for that modification, was the one on G, okay? Now, I want you to notice something in here. What's the distance between, the key of C and the key of G? Okay, it's 1 perfect fifth. Okay, so every time I move up by perfect fifth, I'm adding a sharp into the key signature. Okay, we're going to talk about that next time. Next time, we're going to talk about all the keys out there with sharps in the key signature. And I'm going to introduce you to the circle of fifth, okay, the portion of the circle of fifth that deals with major keys with sharps. Okay, but right now, until next week, I want you guys to remember this. In order to create a like scale like C, okay, we moved up and we found that G, I could modify the G with just one sharp and I can make it sound like C, meaning that it has all the ingredients for a major scale. And I took that F sharp and I moved it into the key signature so that it applies to all the Fs on that particular line. Okay? Distance, again, it's the perfect fifth. That's why knowing your perfect fifth is going to be incredibly important from now on. Okay? So, C, right now you know about the key of C, no sharps, no flats in the key signature, to G, okay, by the way of the perfect fifth, adding one sharp into the key signature. You're going to come back to say, well, does the key of C have a key signature? Yes, it does, okay, except that that key signature is empty, does not have any sharps or flats. Every key has a key signature, okay? G has the key signature. What's in the key signature? One sharp. And that sharp happens to be F. Why F? Because I need to create that leading tone, which was not there. Okay? F sharp to G is a half step. It's your leading tone. I have to create that in order to have a legitimate major scale starting on pitch G. All right? Now you're going to come back and say, well, why did they put that sharp where they put it? Couldn't they put it down on the fourth space there? Yes, they could have, okay? But remember that music started very simple. Most of the music, the beginning music, it's vocal music, and, it pretty much stays on the lower part of the staff, okay? So what they wanted to do is put it in a very conspicuous place there in the beginning of the staff that can be visible immediately. Now, we do not want to put key signature sharps or flats on ledger lines. That's a big no-no, okay? Because that clutters up everything again. So you'll see how all these sharps and flats are going to be staggering because of that little rule, okay? So we started with the F sharp on the first line on top. And again, that F sharp applies to all the Fs on that particular line, okay? Very good. And even if you were to change clefs in the middle of the line, you do not have to put the F sharp again in there, because the first one on the beginning of the line will take care of all those F sharps on that particular line of music. Okay? Great. That's all I have for you guys for today. Remember, next time we're going to talk about the circle of fifth, the part of the circle of fifth that has to do with the major keys with sharps, okay? And you'll see exactly how all these scales all of a sudden start relating to each other by this wonderful interval, which we call the perfect fifth. That's why it's called the circle of fifth. Okay, great. Next, I want to go into the Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book, and I promised you that I will perform the number 19. Okay, this was on your assignment from last time. Your assignment was 18 and 19. And let's quickly look at the challenges of number 19. Basically, you have this formula that you haven't seen before, the eighth note rest to a dotted quarter note. Okay, I'll show you exactly how to perform that as well. You probably already figured it out. And you have a little bit of a syncopated rhythm here on the second line at the end with the eighth note rest followed by an eighth note. And you have a few things tied over the bar line. But overall, nothing too difficult. I'm going to put my metronome again at 90. I like this 90 because it's not too fast. Okay. Let's see, it jumped here for me. Okay, there we go, 90. And let's see how this sounds. All right, so number 19 from Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book. This is in 2/4, so we're conducting on a formula of 2. Let's go. Ta 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 ta. All right. Again, if you need to practice much slower than 90, that's perfectly fine. And practice one line at a time until you master it. Go to the second one, put them together, add the third, add the fourth. And at the end, make sure that you can perform each exercise perfectly without any mistakes at least twice. That's my formula of success here. If you can perform it at least twice without any mistake from beginning to the end, I think by then you've pretty much gotten it. Okay, great. For next time, I want you to look at number 20 and 21. Okay, these are a little longer. They're getting a little longer. And the number 21 moves into 3/4. Okay, this is to give you an experience with eighth notes. And I will perform next time the last 4 lines only from number 21 since they're getting a little longer. Okay, excellent. Very good. Let's look at the solfege number 14 now, which was also on your homework. Solfege number 14 is a little more difficult, I think, because it's a little more chromatic. And the metronome 80 for the dotted quarter note, it's quite fast. Okay. What I will do today, I will perform it a little bit slower for you. I'm going to put it down at 60. And then I'll show you how it's done at 80. Okay? Now, what does that mean, dotted quarter note equals 80? That means that since you're in 6/8 in here, you're supposed to group 3 beats together, okay, and beat on the formula of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ta 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 ta. Okay, that's why I put the dotted quarter note for the metronome marking in there. That immediately tells you, okay, I don't want you to beat in 6. That's going to be too slow. Okay, I want you to start grouping and perform a little quicker. Moderato means moderate, moderate speed, not slow, but not too fast. Okay, that's because of the way we're metering the beat, not too fast. But since we're grouping 3 notes together, it gets quite fast in there. Okay, again, it doesn't start with the same pitch it ends. Starts with mi, la, sol, la. Sound these pitches first, as you practice this. Again, all these solfeges are really to be studied. These are studies. This is something that you study for a whole week, and you go through it every day, or 1 or 2 lines every day if you want to go that way, and you study it. It's not something that you do at sight. And if you do it at sight and you're able to, maybe you're a little more advanced than these particular exercises. But I think this one, number 14, is quite challenging even for an advanced person. To sight read, that is, of course. To study and so on, anyone can do it with enough practice, I think. Okay? So, at the end, I'm going to sound my A pitch, just to make sure that I arrived at the right pitch. I'm going to put the metronome again, as I said, at 60 this time. Okay? Because I think this is a little too fast. But then I'll perform it at 80 to see how that can be done as well. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Mi, la, sol, la, si, do, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa, mi, do, re, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, sol, mi, re, do, la, si, do, re, sol, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, mi, la, sol, la, si, do, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, fa, mi, do, si, la. Okay, notice one thing here at the end. I ignore the metronome on the last bar because I put there a rit, which stands for ritardando, which means gradually slowing down. So it's perfectly okay if at that point you start ignoring the metronome and starting your ritardando. You're slowing down towards the end, okay? That's how we perform these things. You know, when we have performing markings that have to do with tempo, it's okay to ignore the metronome. But if you were to have an a tempo in there, which I don't, but if I were to, then you have to pick up the metronome again and pick up the speed and be with the metronome again. Okay? So, bum, that was the pitch that I ended. Okay, great. Good. Now, how about there's an experiment now? I'm going to put this at 90. Quite a little bit faster. And because of that, I might not be completely accurate with all the pitches, okay? But you'll have to really look ahead and know this quite well in order to perform it at this speed. Bum. Mi, la, sol, la, si, do, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, mi, fa, mi, do, re, fa, sol, mi, fa, sol, mi, re, do, la, si, do, re, sol, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, mi, la, sol, la, si, do, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, fa, mi, do, si, la. All right, so this is something that you really have to learn in order to perform it that fast. Something that you do it over and over and over until you actually memorize it. Okay? I think once you memorize this and you know it by heart, you can sound all these pitches and you can do it at 80. Actually, I did it a little faster. I did it at 90 instead of 80. I put 80 there. But you can see very well that it's possible to be done. You just have to keep looking ahead, know exactly, anticipate what's coming on, and you can actually do it. Great. In my next video, again, I'm going to talk about more about tonalities and keys. We're going to look at those keys with sharps, the major keys with sharps, and the circle of fifth portion of it that has to do with the major keys with sharps only. Okay. You already have the number 20 and 21 from the Robert Starr, and I'm going to assign you 2 more solfeges. Okay. Stay with me with the solfege because this is very, very important. I think if you keep pace with me on this one, you are really, really learning a lot. You're going to be ahead of a lot of people just because you know this solfege stuff so well. Okay? Great ear training material here, the solfege. And again, you have to study these. This is not something that you do at sight and take it lightly. Make sure you know them very well, and you almost memorize them. You do this, you're going to be farther ahead than most people. Great. Until next time, guys, I want you to stay safe and healthy, and looking forward to next time.